live from the Govardhan Eco Village in Maharashtra, India. I see that big smirk on Acyuta's face when I say live from India. This is Spirit Matters, your daily Bhakti Center podcast. I'm Dayal, here with a bunch of friends, Kishor Chandra, Dhanya, Rico, and of course Acyuta Gopi, always holding it down in New York. Let's hear from you first, Acyuta. How you doing?
I'm holding it down in New York. It snowed again.
It snowed again. Okay, beautiful, awesome. We got three people on one mic on this end of it, so you're just gonna have to. I wanted to do the least talking, but I sat down right in the middle, behind the microphone. We're really excited because we've got Dhanya here with us, and she's co-leading this whole pilgrimage with us. We're on the beginning of a pilgrimage. This is me, by the way, saying I'm going to do the least talking and then starting off with a monologue. But I'll just introduce where we are, what we're up to. We are just starting. Today's like our first full day. People are still arriving. In fact, some people are still in their rooms because they're passed out, arriving at midnight or whatever, jet lag. Some people are getting out of their Ayurvedic treatments, glowing Miriam's, glistening, partially from the spiritual bliss and partially from the Ayurvedic oils. And so we're here. We're just starting pilgrimage, and Danya's going to be with us the whole time. And so just want to say hi and see how you're doing. I'm passing the mic.
Hello. Hey, Acyuta. Yeah, I'm doing good. I feel super blessed to be here. I think Bali and Nama and I, every few hours, we're like, can you believe we made it? Can you believe we're here? And yeah, that's been like the mantra of the morning when the Kishor brought. We made it. We actually made it. So it's a little bit of like a pinch yourself moment, and it feels very blessed because yeah, there were many obstacles that could have kind of gotten in our way, and we were I felt very kind of like escorted through the process, which makes me feel like, okay, I'm meant to be here. Let's take it seriously and let's do something really special so that I can honor how beautiful the arrival has been so far. So yeah.
And we were escorted in, and some of us were worried about being escorted out of the airport on our way in. There's so many tests and center. How you doing, Kishor? You got to peel over the microphone. Get close.
I'm doing very well. I'm happy to see you, Acyuta. I feel like even though I saw you last week, I was missing you. So I'm happy to see you. And you're here with us, even though you're far away in New York. And I'm feeling a bit tired, but very happy to be here. Very, what's the word? Kind of resolute. I like this idea that Dhanya brought up, that like we're all here for a very specific reason. And I think, you know, we just went on this little tour for the Govardhan Eco Village, and the Prabhu who was leading, his name was Nimai Leela, and he said such a sweet thing. And he was just explaining to everyone how really the nature of every living being is to serve, is to be of service. And he said something so sweet as well, that like when we're not in service, when we don't feel like we can actually give ourselves to a purpose, that's when we start to move into selfishness, because we don't trust. You know, we've been talking about trust a lot. So he was saying in this material, you know, modern world, like it's very difficult to trust any sort of purpose, because, you know, everything is so just like, it's, you know, it's false. Like everything is, we see falsity in so many things. There's not, where everyone is searching for truth. And so he was saying this really sweet thing that, yeah, when we're not connected to purpose, then we fall out of our ability to serve. And he was describing how here in the Govardhan Eco Village, it's a sustainable eco village. So all of everything, the waters, all the waste, it's all kind of managed to create sustenance for the plants and this and etc. So he was saying even every single part of this eco village is serving. It's a part of service. I won't go into too many details, but there was a lot of details, so let's just say that.
The detail is that the human wastewater is filtrated through a natural system of rocks and roots that go underground through this natural filtration system, and it nurtures this entire the whole system. Like it nurtures gardens, flowers grow from it, papayas grow from it.
They call those, right?
They call them the pupayas. Because all of the waste is nurtures, and then it filtrates it. They use it for biofuel. They have compost. They even have a whole plant where like they take they burn. It's not burning plastic, because if you burn plastic, it has like this toxic dioxide waste air. But they have like this system where it heats the plastic into a way that filtrates it into diesel oil that they can use, et cetera. So like there's no waste. And so basically every time you flush your toilet, you're contributing to bioeconomic sustainability. So everyone's contributing through their hard efforts. And so he was thanking everybody. And so not the same for New York. Anyways, those are the side details. But Kishore was saying something so beautifully about that mood of service. And I really want to just hear from Dhanya and Acyuta today. So I kind of feel like I want to like sneak the microphone over off in this direction. And anything that Kishore had said, if something comes to your guys' mind, or also just, as you were saying, Dhanya, just like the gratitude of being here, just kind of like this mood of pilgrimage and this mood of sacredness. I would love to kind of hear your guys' dialogue a little bit on those thoughts if things come to mind.
I'm here all the time. You have to start with Dhanya.
Well, actually, I kind of like this idea of human waste. Well, because like so much of spirituality is like the light and what we're working towards and our goals and our values and the like sangha, and I think that maybe an underrated contribution to our spiritual life is the waste. It's the stuff we're trying to get rid of. And is there a high vibration way of shedding wasteful parts of ourselves that is a meaningful part of our spiritual life? How do we do that, Can it be metabolized into something that contributes? Can it be metabolized into something? Can it be worked into something? I'm really trying to think of the poop thing. Like, can it be worked into something that can like actually be meaningful? Because there's a way of waste just being waste, but it's also an opportunity that you're missing out on. Unless you see like even this waste, even this refuse can be useful in some way. There's even byproducts that are healthy and can be recycled, right? Because, the invocation of the Upanishad, everything is perfect and complete. That has to include my shadow. That has to include my waste. That has to include all of the shortcomings, all the conditioning, all of my bad karma, all of that kind of stuff. So, Acyuta's a mystic extraordinaire. Can you speak on that? What happens to is there a high vibe way of getting rid of like the shadow or getting rid of the dark side of things?
And now we got the title for this episode. It's High Vibe Shadow Work.
I was just gonna go with pupaya, but I think yours is better.
I'm trying to think of like excrement ways of like trauma, bipolar disorder. So those, what kind of ways, or how are we describing these things here? Is there we have a new vocabulary that Dhanya just introduced us in a whole nother world. We're talking about the mood of pilgrimage and like Kishore's like service, and Dhanya's like, I want to talk about poop. The human waste. You really had me at the human waste. Can we just dial back to that part, please?
You know why? It's because she's a mom. And once you become a mom, you have to deal a lot in human waste. Half your job is dealing in human waste, okay? So we got to figure out a way to dovetail.
She knows. She knows. She got me. The bridge was immediately built. Got you.
She's like, what am I supposed to do with all these diapers all day? Like, how can I transform this spiritually?
Like, can we? But yeah, I mean, that's, just so last Friday, I was with a Devi Sangha with Gangi, and verse 927 from Bhagavad Gita came up. Whatever you eat, whatever you do, whatever you offer, whatever you give away. And I kind of looked at this idea, whatever you give away. Normally we think about charity, but what about the things that we actually have to get rid of? What about all the things in the heart that we have to like renounce and let go of? And what about looking at Krishna and saying, you know what, I'm not strong enough to carry it all. I can't physically carry this all. I'm not meant to, but I know that my friend can carry everything. So whatever you eat, whatever you do, whatever you offer or give away, just do that as a service. And I mean, I guess it can be kind of like a mind meld to try and change that perspective when you're like in the bathroom. You're like, even this works, huh? But you're in a place actively looking at, yeah, this works. It's service now. And it's about taking this idea of service and integrating it literally in every single aspect of our lives, which I think just serves to make us more and more conscious. So it's just about us becoming conscious of everything being a service.
Mm. Yeah, I like that so much because also I think, I mean, you know, you're such a pillar of your community, Acyuta, you know, and I think that living in community, you know, we're Goshti Anandis. So if I don't handle that shadow, if I don't handle that waste, that I need to get rid of, it's not just damaging for my spiritual life, it's also the impact that I generate in my relationship. So it totally is service because I'm serving others by upgrading myself, by shedding that which is unnecessary, that which I've outgrown, right? If I see it as maybe just, you know, I could probably live with my shortcomings. I'm like cool with them. I kind of like them. Like I snuggle with them, you know? I see my shortcomings. I'm like, oh my God, that's so unique and cute. But it's actually, but it's actually not, because even if I can tolerate that, and even if that's what I think makes me, you know, quirky or whatever, is that reverberating out into my relationships and therefore into my community in a way that's uplifting, or is it not? So it's actually a service to my community to take care of that and to offer that, you know, to Krishna. And it's interesting that you were saying that all that you give away. You know, I don't know who says this. Vaisheshika Prabhu quotes it, and I want to say that he attributes it to Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. He's talking about the person who's carrying, I don't know if it's like, I'm obviously not remembering this great, but I think they're carrying like grains of rice or something, and then the wind sweeps it away, and they're like, oh, I offer it to Vishnu. And he's like, well, that doesn't, what? Like, okay, well, it was half in the air anyways, nice offering. So Vaisheshika Prabhu makes the point of it's all gonna get taken away. So better offer it while you actually have it in your hand, because that's a real offering, right? When my shadow starts damaging my relationships and I start kind of letting my conditioning or the three modes of nature kind of get the best of me, and then I'm kind of in the dirt and I go, well, I offer it. Of course that's accepted because that's how cool Krishna is, but why not offer it as a conscious working out of those issues? You know, I serve others, I serve my community. I mean, I feel like that could be super powerful.
Yeah, and I've also heard that story. It's like there's a person, they're like getting ready to eat and they have all these grains and the wind comes and sweeps and they're like, I offer it, no problem, it's fine. And that kind of renunciation I think is way more palatable, to use a really good ISKCON Srila Prabhupada word, like palatable. It's so much more digestible when you think about it that way, when it's like unconscious, unknowing, and this is what we talk about. It's like now we're talking about waste in different modes, right? So waste in the mode of goodness would be this preemptive giving away, right? The things that you know have to go, but it's preemptively done consciously. And then you've got like waste in the mode of passion, where I guess it's just kind of like quickly done. And then you got waste in the mode of ignorance, where it's like this long, drawn out like experience where you're just kind of like waiting and you're like, are you ever coming out of the bathroom? Like, are you living in there? What are you doing in there exactly? Like, what's happening? You ever get those people like you room with somebody and they're an hour in the bathroom, there's nothing going on? Like, what are you setting up shop? Are you scrolling on your phone? Do you have a new Instagram account now because you've been in there that long? Like, so what's happening? So
Everyone here on the trip is roomed with somebody. Half the room is laughing, half the room is covering their face. So we're getting exposed here. I just want to ask, because Dhanya, you're speaking so deeply on this. I want to, because like part of my mind is going to like deep, like you said, like shadow work, like working on our inner self, and then part of my mind is just like picturing somebody in a bathroom, and so I'm like in terms of examples, like could you give, like you're talking about like how we can live with maybe certain parts of ourselves that maybe we think are quirky or cute, but it's actually reverberating out. Like, what can you give examples or kind of visualize that for us? Like, what do you mean by? Because I think we use this term often. We may refer to it in different ways, but just for the sake of clarity for us, like examples of shadow self, and what does it mean to do that work, and what does it mean to like discard that waste in a healthy manner?
Yeah, so the reason why that came to mind is because I recently spent some time with a couple that was like that really struggling. And this is a couple that, you know, we were all at their wedding and it was just like such an incredible blessed moment, and everybody celebrating and just like creating so much intention and holding space for this couple and then making vows and just like really honoring like, wow, you're doing something so special. So it was a community samskara. We're all watching you make this enormous commitment to take care of each other and to serve together. And then, you know, lo and behold, X amount of time passes by and, you know, they're hitting some serious speed bumps, and it's bringing up what all committed relationships bring up, which is our shadow, the stuff that we're meant to work on, and we mirror that in each other. And so this couple really was hitting like communication issues, like aggression, you know, partners that were really kind of looking into like, wow, this is conditioning coming from my childhood, from absent parents, from abusive environments, from other toxic relationships, from bad decisions being made earlier in life. And they're kind of like at a point where they're almost okay with it, because they're just like, ah, whatever, you know, people fight, I'll take care of my own needs, and, you know, we'll figure this out and it's temporary. And part of the discussion around it was, wait a minute, but the whole community that sat there with you in ceremony feels heartbroken by your pain. We're not just watching you, we're feeling you. Because when you experience a samskara like that together, it affects everybody, your highs and your lows. That's what we're all committing to. We're saying we'll all be here to hold space for you, not just for your wedding on one day. You know, so in that sense, I feel like part of shedding the shadow or doing some of that personal work would be, okay, why do I get aggressive? Why do I get aggressive when I fight? What happens to me that I raise my voice? Let me take a look at that. What am I trying to do? Is it a lack of power? Is it something I learned in my house growing up? Like, do I feel threatened by this person? I'm trying to create a power stance. Is it that I feel unheard? I need to take a look at that. I'm gonna have to read a book about that. I want to seek a mentor and find guidance on that. I want to go to counseling for that. I need to go to couples counseling with my partner, because that cannot like stand any longer. Not just because it's not working in my relationship, but I actually am breaking the hearts of people who are committed to helping me and committed to supporting me. So even something as simple as a couple fighting brings up that personal shadow, and then boom, it starts creating this ripple effect into the community. I mean, I haven't stopped thinking about this couple since the time that I spent with them. And I'm not physically, you know, but do they know? Do they know that when they struggle, that others feel pain? Do we know that when we struggle, others feel pain? So that's a kind of that. It's what I was thinking about when I was talking about it. You know what I mean?
I what I love and take away so much from that is just the idea that we don't know how we're impacting the lives around us, for better or for worse. And I think that so much of the loneliness or the kind of desperation or hopelessness we sometimes feel is that when we don't, as Kishor was sometimes earlier saying, like living for a purpose or living for some sense of service. And sometimes it's easy, I think sometimes a sense of purpose gives me a feeling that my life matters, and matters like it matters to some people. And I think that we don't often see how many lives we do touch, how many people we do make a difference for, whether it's that we don't always know. And I think, like, for me, one takeaway is also flipping that into how often do I express that to people. Like we talked about that here also, in our mood of pilgrimage, and we went over and we borrow Raghunath's 6 pillars of bhakti. One of them being, you know, talking about like not criticizing, being tolerant, and also seeing the good in others and letting them know it, and it becoming a spiritual practice. I think we may have, I don't know if we've talked about this on a previous episode, but taking that time to, I see this so often also in Ananta Govinda, Acyuta, and your brother, and things that he posts, of like letting people know exactly the impact that you're having in your life. Because sometimes we think of our purpose being some big, grand, I got to start a nonprofit, or I've got to create an eco village, I got to do something, I got to like save starving children or something, but also recognizing something very, very local. And purpose sometimes can just be impacting even just like family, or just something so local to us, makes such a huge, huge difference. So I was just kind of reflecting on that as a takeaway for me that I'm glad you brought up.
I'll just say that I really like this point that Danya brought up about, just how our shadow work affects others. And this this word, or these two words, came up into my mind that are kind of like, you hear them a lot nowadays. We hear a lot about trauma work, but specifically about healing generational trauma. And I think it's really interesting. I'm super happy that you're here with us for many reasons, but specifically also for the podcast to talk about these kinds of things, because I think that these are the kinds of things, like Danya was saying, that people just don't really talk about. You know, it's almost like my spiritual life is over here, and I'm doing all the things to nurture that spiritual life, but there's some sort of disconnect or discord with this healing process of any sort of traumas, or, like Danya was saying, I really like the way she put it, like things that I will see as quirky or idiosyncratic, or it's just who I am. It's just the way that I was raised. It just is what it is, And it's not that. It's not, that. It's actually something much deeper. And so when there's a consciousness around having the possibility to heal that, it's like, whoa, it's like this healing is going to reverberate into my family members, my community, just like the darkness and holding on to it will reverberate. If I choose to go to that path of healing, then that will also reverberate. And it's really powerful. It's really powerful. I'm glad to hear that, Danya, and I want to hear more about your stories. I want to hear more.
Yeah, tell us some more about other people struggling with their communication and aggression. Help me feel better about my marriage by hearing the struggles of other people. That's it. That's my question.
You know, when you do that, when you're like, I'm asking for a friend. These are for other people they are struggling, but I am not struggling.
Asking for a friend. What do you do when you have a partner who doesn't seem to listen to you and accuses you of so many false accusations of character defect? How do you let them know that they're wrong?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, Acyuta, what for you, how has it been for you, especially in such a, you're so close with your family members, you're such an important member of the community. How do you experience that, when others experience highs and lows in their life, and you're a witness to it, when you're a close friend or you're a family member? I mean, do you feel that impact? Do you feel that impact and that ripple effect? And then what is a bhakta to do? How do we respond when we see others suffering and we don't necessarily have a like starring role in the situation? Because another shadow is the rescuer. I'm gonna swoop in and I'm gonna just wave my little magic wand. That's so often not our role, and we might be doing that because we're so deeply uncomfortable with witnessing other people's pain. So, what is that like for you? What do you do when you see community members struggling? What is a bhakta to do?
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? Because we're in a culture that should be so personal, but you have to like walk that thin line between personal and then overstepping. And anybody who kind of knows my family knows that we're kind of really huge on like, I'm on my business. And part of that is because you never know, you it takes so much to get into the full extent of a problem. That's one. And then two, unless you are a licensed professional, right? Sometimes it gets to a really like cagey, dicey spot where you're giving somebody advice. So I gave somebody asked me for advice once, and they said, "Oh, I have a cousin. They're feeling really depressed and super suicidal, and what should I do?" And I said, "Well, you personally, unless you are a mental health professional, you pray and then you ask that person, help them get help, actual help. Take that like that stigma out, go to the person, let them know that you're actually really seeing this, and then help them get help." Because I really think that sometimes there is no substitute for getting that help. Go get help. And I'm really a firm believer. Like if somebody comes and they tell me that they're feeling suicidal, I'm like, no, we go get help. We go and tell somebody we trust. And that person said, cool. So what you're telling me is I should just, I'll just like wait it out, and I'll try and give them the best advice I can. And I was like, that is the exact opposite of what I just said. I, that's, that's the not what I just said. So like, sometimes it gets really questionable when you give people advice, what advice they're actually hearing, because sometimes they've already got an idea in their mind that picked out. So what do we do? First is to actually let the person know that you're seeing it, and in a mood of compassion, not in a mood of like, I can't believe that you would do this to me and our entire community. And sometimes that what we're feeling begins to take on this whole, like, this is happening to me. And I think it behooves us to remember that this is actually happening to them. They're in it, they're stuck in it, dealing with all the things. But just letting them know that they're not going through it alone, invisible, unseen, all the cries for help, all the subtle things that come out. I see it. I hear you. I get it. Now, how do we serve each other best in this situation? Whether that's me saying, whatever you need, you want to go to help and not get help and not tell anybody, I'm there for it. You want to get help and tell everybody, I'm there for it. Like, whatever it is, to try and really actually, in a mood of compassion, serve this other person. And I think that that's what is most consciously needed. This idea of not taking those other people's problems onto yourself and then not making those other people's problems about yourself. And then being able to actually offer some sort of assistance. And then when in doubt, we always have prayer.
I feel like it's such a brilliant answer, because you're basically saying like a good Bhakta's got boundaries. And
Which, by the way, is the actual title of this episode.
well, I mean, there's so much gold in that, right? Because you're saying, if you are going to help, we first have to be clear on what is my lane, right? Where do I end and then this person begin, and not disempower them by overextending and by, taking away their agency and taking away their autonomy. That's so important, because when they do seek help and it is autonomous, that's the beginning of the end of the issue, so it's so beautiful that. And also what you're saying is, we can't underestimate the power of prayer. Sometimes it does feel like we're not doing enough to pray. Sometimes it does feel like, oh, am I just going to sit here and just like, oh, I'm going to dedicate some japa to this person. It feels like helpless a little bit. But then what's that saying about my faith, right? Am I saying that Krishna, who carries what we lack, can't carry this? Like, that's banana. So I'm going to swoop in and rescue it? Like, what kind of theism is that? What am I doing? Like, I'm flipping the roles like so hard. So yeah, that's me putting myself in the center, which is the opposite of bhakti, right? Right? That's what Acyuta is saying. She's like, that is not what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying very hard not to say.
You're just like, I'm never going to advice from you now. Thank you for spotting yourself as someone not to trust. But I was just thinking, and also we're wrapping up. We're a little over, but we started a little late, so that's why we're giving a few extra minutes. But I was just thinking of two examples of also just outlining that out in the Gita, which is where the Gita begins. What you're saying, Dhanya, is like there's a very clear delineation of roles. And that initially Arjuna and Krishna have this friendship, and they're also a charioteer and a chariot driver. And then it's not until the beginning of the second chapter where Arjuna is actually the one, when seeking advice also lets Krishna know the role he wants him to play. So sometimes we go seek help from other people, but we don't clarify what role we want them to play, or we as the person kind of hearing the plea for help don't take the time to delineate that role. And so I was just appreciating that, like the entire context, all the discussion, all the lessons of the Bhagavad Gita began with, okay, let's delineate our roles. I want you to be the teacher, and I'm going to be in the mood of the receiver. And there's also, I was thinking, a precedent of this in the Bhagavatam, where one person approached somebody for some instruction. They said, no, you don't come to me, go to somebody else. Anybody? Put anybody on the spot here? Anybody know an example of that? Bhagavatam? I'm thinking of Vidura and
No, that's what I was
Uddhava.
gonna say. Aren't there several? But isn't that how Vidura gets to like Maitreya Muni? He has to
That's how
go to.
Vidura gets to Muni. Yeah, Vidura eventually goes to Uddhava. And although Uddhava is a very, very advanced devotee, he just says, our relationship, my age, and you're, et cetera, like, you're like an uncle to me. Like it's not appropriate. Like, go to Maitreya. And the whole multi-cantos of the Bhagavatam come from this sense of like, just because someone's coming to you doesn't mean you can't defer them to somebody else. Doesn't mean you have to put on this display of spiritual acumen that I have to be the one to solving those problems. So good Bhaktas have good boundaries. And I love that title for this episode. We're out of time because we keep it short and sweet here. We're at 30 minutes. And as always, we have Kimberly there who's steadily waking up an hour earlier, even though she's on the west coast of the United States. What are some takeaways you got from Miss Kimberly or other takeaways? I mean, I see Rukmini Potter's got a poop and flame emoji that she put there. Those who came in late are wondering what we're talking about. But what are our takeaways, Kimberly, or any takeaways anybody wants to write in the chat?
So some takeaways I got out was taking the idea of service and integrating it into every aspect of our lives, and how it's a service to our community to take care of ourselves and our shadow. The people that love us are impacted by our highs and lows, and we can make a huge difference with just the people around us. And lastly, to serve in the mood of compassion, we also have to have boundaries.
That's a big one at the end. Thank you. And Leileshwari wrote, one takeaway for me is that not only our shadows and pain impact others, but our healing process also reverberates in our relationships and community. Thank you, Leileshwari. Appreciate that. We got 4 people here who are sharing a microphone, but are there any takeaways from anybody? I'll just kind of put it out there. If somebody has something, you grab the mic, or Acyuta, if you got anything, or Dhanya, Kishor, anything you want to close with? Kishor does. No, that's a no from Kishor. that mumble was not, yes, I have something to say. It was, let's close and go to dinner. Dhanya, you have any closing words you want to say?
I feel like I said already too many words.
She said so many words. Acyuta, we're back to you.
Just leaving off with this idea that saving ourselves automatically saves everybody else around us.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, thank you guys so much. Thank you too. We have a live audience here that you can't see, but there's humans in the room, human beings, and there's also a live Zoom audience. And thank you guys so much for listening. You can find us on all your podcast streaming platforms. We'll be here all week. Some of the days and times might adjust. Like tomorrow, we might be at a different time. We're gonna let you guys all know because we're here in India and doing stuff, and things are going to adjust. And so, but we love you guys so much. Thanks for tuning in. For those who are on our live audience, we can't wait to see you next time. Oh, Domi put a chat. Purpose doesn't have to be grand. It can be local and meaningful. Beautiful, beautiful, Domi. Thank you guys all so much. We will see you next time. Take care. Until then, bye-bye.